In the middle of the stage, Jimi Hendrix set his guitar down, walked off without looking at anyone, and offered no explanation. That silence changed the life of everyone in the studio. The Blue Note. Chicago. March 1968. A Wednesday night. 73 people in a basement club that smelled of cigarette smoke and beer. The kind of venue where you could see the sweat on a musician's face, where the stage was just 18 inches off the ground, where there was no barrier between performer and witness. Jimi Hendrix wasn't supposed to be there. He was between tour dates. Between the machinery of stadiums and television appearances and record label expectations. Someone had told him about the Blue Note. A place where real musicians went to play after their official gigs ended, where the music mattered more than the money, where you could show up unannounced and just play. So he did. He arrived around 11:30. No entourage. No announcement. Just walked through the door in his fringe jacket and bell-bottoms, carrying his Stratocaster in a battered case. The house band was finishing a set, decent players doing their best with a small crowd that was half listening. Hendrix stood in the back for 20 minutes. Watching. Not like a star observing lesser talent. Like a student studying a lesson. The bandleader, a saxophonist named Marcus Webb who'd been playing Chicago clubs for 15 years, noticed him eventually. Did a double take. Nearly dropped his instrument. "Holy shit," Marcus said into the microphone, pointing toward the back. "Is that Jimi Hendrix?" The room turned. 73 people suddenly wide awake. Hendrix nodded slightly, that small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "You want to sit in?" Marcus asked, already knowing the answer but needing to offer anyway. Hendrix walked to the stage carrying his guitar. No fanfare. No introduction needed. He plugged into the house amp, a beat-up Fender that had seen better days, and adjusted the settings with the precision of someone who knew exactly what he wanted to hear. The band started a blues progression. Simple. Classic. The kind of structure that gives a guitarist room to speak. And Jimi Hendrix played. Not the pyrotechnics. Not the showmanship. Not the teeth-playing or behind-the-back tricks that had made him famous. Just pure, distilled musicianship. Notes that bent in ways that shouldn't be possible. Silence used as powerfully as sound. Every phrase a complete thought, every pause deliberate. The room fell into that particular kind of silence that happens when people forget to breathe. He played for maybe 4 minutes. The band followed him like they'd been playing together for years, even though they never exchanged a single word. Marcus Webb's saxophone wove around Hendrix's guitar lines, and for those 4 minutes, the Blue Note became the center of the musical universe. And then Hendrix stopped. Not at a natural ending. Not at the completion of a phrase. Just stopped. Mid-note. His hands lifted from the guitar. He looked down at the instrument still hanging from his shoulder strap, then back toward the small crowd. Something had caught his attention. Someone. In the front row, pressed against the stage, was a kid. Maybe 19, maybe 20. White kid with long hair and an old denim jacket, holding a guitar case like it was the most precious thing he owned. His eyes were wet. Not crying exactly. Just overwhelmed. Hendrix didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. He unstrapped his guitar. Set it down on the stage floor with the kind of care you'd use handling something sacred. The cable still connected. The amp still humming. And then, without a word to the band or the audience, Jimi Hendrix stepped off the stage. The room didn't understand. 73 people frozen in confusion. Marcus Webb's saxophone still at his lips, no sound coming out. The bassist and drummer looking at each other, uncertain whether to keep playing or stop. Hendrix walked directly to the kid in the front row. "What's your name?" His voice was quiet. The people around them had to lean in to hear. "David," the kid said, his voice shaking. "David Morrison. You play?" David nodded, unable to form words, just gestured to the guitar case he was clutching. "Show me," Hendrix said. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a command. It was something else. An invitation that felt like gravity. David's hands trembled as he opened his case. Inside was a Gibson acoustic. Not expensive. Not new. The kind of guitar a working-class kid saves for 6 months to buy. Scratches on the body. Worn frets. But clean. Loved. He pulled it out, and Hendrix saw his hands. The fingertips were raw. Fresh calluses. The marks of someone who'd been practicing until their fingers bled and then practicing more. Hendrix gestured to the stage. "Come on." "I can't," David whispered. I can't play like you." "I didn't ask you to play like me," Hendrix said, and there was no ego in it, no condescension, just pure fact. "I asked you to play?" The crowd watched as David Morrison, trembling, climbed onto the stage of the Blue Note with Jimi Hendrix. Marcus Webb stepped back, giving them space. The other musicians put down their instruments. Everyone understood that something was happening that transcended the usual architecture of a performance. Hendrix picked up his Stratocaster from where he'd left it on the stage floor. He adjusted the volume down. Softer. He looked at David. "Play something you wrote," Hendrix said. "I don't have anything good enough." "Play something you wrote," Hendrix repeated, and this time it wasn't a suggestion. David sat down on the edge of the stage, his acoustic across his lap. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the neck. The audience was completely silent. Waiting. He started to play. It was rough. The chord changes weren't always clean. His timing wavered. But there was something there. A melody that felt honest. A progression that suggested he'd been listening to the right teachers. Hendrix listened for maybe 30 seconds. Then he started playing along. Not over David. Not drowning him out. Under him. Around him. Finding spaces in David's playing where a note could live, where a phrase could breathe. Supporting without overwhelming. His electric guitar speaking in whispers, making David's acoustic sound bigger, fuller, more complete than it had any right to sound. David's hands steadied. His timing smoothed. He started to hear what Hendrix was doing, not showing off, not demonstrating superiority, but listening. Actually listening. And responding. Creating a conversation. They played for 3 minutes. When it ended, a natural ending this time, both of them arriving at the same final chord simultaneously, the room erupted. But Hendrix wasn't paying attention to the applause. He was looking at David, who had tears streaming down his face. "You hear what happened there?" Hendrix asked quietly. David nodded, not trusting his voice. "You started scared. Playing what you thought I wanted to hear. Trying to impress. And then, about halfway through, you stopped trying and started listening. That's when it became music." Hendrix paused. "You can't play for someone else's approval. You play because you have something that needs to come out. And when you do that, really do that, people will listen. They won't have a choice. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the meaning of this moment is still unfolding." Hendrix handed David something. A guitar pick. Not a special one. Not gold-plated or autographed. Just a regular pick worn from use, with Hendrix's thumbprint visible on one side. "Keep practicing," Hendrix said. "And when your fingers heal, practice more. Don't chase what other people are doing. Find what only you can say." He turned to Marcus Webb and the band. "Thanks for letting me sit in." And then Jimi Hendrix walked out of the Blue Note the same way he'd entered. No goodbye speech. No encore. No explanation of why he'd stopped mid-song and pulled a stranger onto stage. He just left, his guitar case in hand, disappearing into the Chicago night. The room stayed silent for a long moment after the door closed. David Morrison sat on the edge of the stage, staring at the pick in his hand, trying to process what had just happened. Around him, 73 people were having the same experience. That specific kind of mental recalibration that happens when you witness something that doesn't fit into any category you already have. Marcus Webb was the first to speak. He walked over to David, still sitting there, still holding that pick like it might evaporate. "Kid," Marcus said gently, "you know what you just experienced?" David shook his head. "Most musicians spend their whole lives trying to prove they're the best. Jimi Hendrix is the best, and he just spent 3 minutes proving that he doesn't need to prove anything. He stopped his own performance to make yours better. Do you understand how rare that is?" In the years that followed, the story of that night at the Blue Note spread. Not through media. Not through official channels. Through whispers. Through musicians telling other musicians. Through the kind of legend that grows because it touches something true. People who were there that night, all 73 of them, remembered it differently than other concerts. They didn't talk about how well Hendrix played. They talked about the silence when he set down his guitar. The look on that kid's face. The moment when you could hear, in the space between notes, what real mastery actually was. It wasn't domination. It wasn't virtuosity for its own sake. It was the ability to make everyone else in the room better by your presence. To give rather than take. To know that your power is most profound when you choose not to use it. In that quiet moment, Hendrix did something no one expected. David Morrison never became famous. He played in Chicago clubs for the next 40 years. Session work. Teaching. Small gigs. But everyone who played with him noticed something. The way he listened. The way he made space for other musicians. The way he understood that music was conversation, not competition. He kept that pick. Framed it. Not to show off, he rarely told people where it came from. But he looked at it before every performance for 4 decades. A reminder of the night when the greatest guitarist in the world stopped playing to listen to someone who was barely competent. In 1997, a journalist tracked David down for a piece about musicians who met Jimi Hendrix. David was 52 by then, teaching guitar to kids in a South Side Chicago community center. "What did you learn that night?" the journalist asked. David thought for a long time. That real power is quiet. That the best musicians make other people sound good. That ego is the enemy of art. That... He paused, looking at that framed pick on his wall. That Jimi Hendrix understood something most people never figure out. It's not about being better than everyone else. It's about being present. Being honest. Being willing to stop your own show if you see someone who needs to be heard. The journalist published the interview. It got picked up by music magazines. People started talking about the Blue Note story again. Some claimed to have been there. Some called it apocryphal. But the 73 people who actually witnessed it knew different. Marcus Webb, the saxophonist, was interviewed in 2003, a year before he died. "I've played with legends," he said. Bird. Coltrane. Miles once. They were all brilliant. But Jimi Hendrix was the only one I ever saw stop mid-performance because he noticed someone in the audience who needed something. Not attention. Not approval. Just permission to be heard. Marcus died holding his saxophone. But at his funeral, they didn't play his recordings. They played a bootleg tape from the Blue Note. March 1968. You can hear it if you listen carefully. The moment when Hendrix stops playing, the confused silence, and then, very faintly, a young guitarist starting to find his voice. What followed stayed with everyone in the room, long after the last note faded. David Morrison died in 2019. His students, over 1,000 of them across 5 decades, came to his memorial. They brought guitars. They played. And every single one of them understood, without being told, why their teacher had always insisted, listen first, play second. The pick is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now. Donated by David's daughter. There's no plaque. No explanation. Just a worn guitar pick in a glass case. Most people walk past it without noticing. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Those who stop, who look closely, see the thumbprint still visible on one side. Evidence that greatness isn't about what you do. It's about what you choose not to do. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a master can do is step aside and let someone else speak.